What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? We are live with another episode of Catch the Craze podcast. And we have a special guest on tonight. We have Daniel Moeller on the show. We're going to be talking to him about his career in comics as an educator, as a speaker. The guy's a jack of all trades. He's done everything. And a little reflection on the past year. With that said, how about we just start the show and let's get it.
We are the only show for independents all around, giving you a platform to spread your word all over town. Catch the Craze is the place to promote to your fans with the dream of Medina and Sam the Crazy Man. Subscribe to our show and never miss an episode. It's time to get your mans, listen to us on the go. Updated every week, we never miss a day. Join the squad, come on in. It's time to catch the Craze. If you are an independent, catch the Craze. Making moves on your own, catch the Craze. On your grind in the streets, catch the Craze. Join the movement, catch the Craze.
Yeah, George, we did it again. Come on now. You know you want to do it. Catch the Craze. Catch the Craze podcast. I'm your host with the most, Sam the Crazy Man Vera. And tonight, George is not here.
Yay!
No, that's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. George is in Chicago. He's in Chicago with the family, getting ready to celebrate the new year. And I'm here with you, getting ready to lock in the 2025 and head into 26. It's crazy. Time flies. You know how to realize when you're younger, time stands still. It just goes on forever. But then when you hit a certain stage in your life, where the world is on your shoulders and you have multiple responsibilities and everybody at your neck wanting this and wanting that, time is just not your friend. It's a rare commodity. It seems like you're chasing the clock. At least that's what it seems like for me. It seems like I'm always chasing the clock. But as I look back and reflect on the year, you know, if I had to grade myself for this year from on the comic side of it, I'd say like a B minus. C plus B minus for the professional side, because everybody knows that I do have a full-time job. On the professional side of it, I'd say about an A minus. Can't complain about that side of things, but comics could be better. I took some L's at some conventions this year. I've shared that with a lot of you out there. Had some wins, but had some losses. And some things that I wanted to do didn't come to fruition. So 2025 was a year of the learning. Lots of learnings, man. Lessons learned and applying them for next year. So next year, I'm taking it slowly. Reduce the amount of conventions I'm going to do in 26. Really being specific as to where I want to make my investment and where I want to make my appearances. A lot of it's going to be localized, local at comic shops and bookstores and libraries and schools. Where I'm focusing on just building that audience out here and really slowing down. Forbidden is done. I've done about 7 issues of There's Nailing in My Toilet. I've done Duty's Monsters, and Forbidden, the omnibus, is in the printer's hands right now. I should have it in a couple of weeks to be able to ship out to everybody who backed the Kickstarter. But now it's Cosmic Wars. And Cosmic Wars, just for anybody who's been watching this show or who are new to the show, doesn't know what Cosmic Wars is. You know, I created the main character, Cosmic Gorf, when I was 12 years old. And it was the first comic book that I published as an independent comic book publisher back in 2003 under my banner Crazy Comics. And it was the first time. I mean, everybody thought I was innovative back then, right? Because I was using 3D programs to create all of my backgrounds, but I was doing traditional art over the 3D. So all my characters and all my ships were hand illustrated and then colored and superimposed with my 3D backgrounds that I use things like Combustion and Bryce and 3D Studio Max, and I was just all into that. And so when I produced the comic, everyone was like, "Whoa, this is breakthrough stuff!" Right? I was a digital media or a graphic design major, and I was studying it, so I was applying it. But now I'm redoing the whole thing, re-illustrating, recreating the whole series. Here's a piece that I just completed of there's Gorf and Zap. Gorf is the hero. He's the guardian and protector of the Arthenian star, and Zap is his trusted sidekick. And that's one of the pieces I just did. And for everybody who signs up for the launch of the Kickstarter, which launches in February, signs up and backs it on the day of, you'll get free, and you'll become a Cosmic Guardian Defender of Freedom 4-inch sticker. So you'll get this sticker just for signing up on the Kickstarter and making sure you pledge on day one. And that's you become an honorary member of the Cosmic Guardians. And so it's going to be fun. It's going to be crazy. I'm excited about this. Here's another piece I did a few weeks ago with this Gorf against Commander Rocks. And I decided to take a play off of Street Fighter with a video game with the power levels at the top and the scoring and the whole bit. So that was a play on that. But yeah, so it's going to be fun. It is a fun comic book. I'm excited about it. So the first character I created as a kid, Gorf, does not look anything like he did when I was 12 years old. In fact, he looked a lot more like Alf than he did anything else. Heavily influenced by Alf when I was a kid. So, but it's fun. I'm excited about that. So in hindsight, when I look back at 25, I'd say I made some mistakes. And I've learned some things, and I think I was in a rush to try to do as many conventions as possible, but I didn't do enough legwork on the events that I invested in, because I view conventions an investment. And so because of that, some of those events were not good for me. And then the things I wanted to do, right? I had to move things around because I think the Christmas special that I wanted to do, I canceled the Kickstarter before it launched. I canceled the Kickstarter during the launch because it just wasn't trending well. And even though most people told me not to cancel it, I decided to drop it. No one was in the spirit of Christmas in July, and but it was going to ship in time for Christmas. But so that was an L for me. And then Forbidden did really well, but I felt like it could have done a lot better. So I feel like my marketing strategy, my promotional strategy needs some work. There's a lot of things that I've taken back. I've done some homework, working on trying to connect with a lot of gamers, especially with Cosmic Wars, and gaming enthusiasts and fantasy and sci-fi fans. So there's a lot of things there. But 2026, 6 conventions, that's it. I'm only doing 6. I'm not doing 14 like I did last year. And I'm starting off February with Texoma Comic Con. It'll be my 3rd appearance there. Last year we were there. We were live on a panel, which was pretty dope. So this year I'll be introducing some new stuff there. So I'm looking forward to there's a really good comic book scene there, and the fans are amazing out there. And then I'm doing LitCon again, my 3rd appearance at LitCon, and it's a small local show. Hosted by the city, and it's at the library, and the audience and fans there are just amazing. And I love going to these smaller shows because you really get to build relationships and connect with people. The bigger shows, you don't really have that opportunity because it's like it's transactional when you're at the bigger shows, and you're constantly just trying to connect, sell. Where the smaller shows, you can just talk and really connect on a personal level, without worried about people stepping over other people and bumping each other, and people waiting or losing a sale because or whatever it is. So I'm trying to do a lot more local shows, smaller shows. And so this year the plans are Cosmic Wars, There's Nail in My Toilet, issue number 8, and the Art of Duty book for 2026. So those are only 3 things that I'm doing this year. So issue number 8 for Designated My Toilet is halfway done. I'm currently in the middle of illustrating Cosmic Wars, and the art book is done. I'm just going to wait to build a demand for the art book and then release it in the fall. So those are the lessons. Those are the things that I'm going to do for 2026. We have, I think, the first couple of months booked out for the new year already for the show, which is pretty crazy. I don't know what George has planned, but I know he has some really good things going on. His comic is being distributed by Filbo Distributions. And so I don't know what issue he's up to now, but he's in stores now, his floppies. And he just had a successful campaign with his comic book. And he's got some projects he's working on with other independents, and he's lettering a lot of books. So he's a letterer. So he's lettering a lot of independent comic books out there as well. So he's doing his thing out there. And I know my boy Anibal Arroyos is working on his project. Hopefully we'll see it in 26. And we'll see what goes on with there. And then the people that we know, JD Calderon and Daphne Lage, they're doing their thing. They dominate that Kickstarter game. They have like a campaign every other week, which is crazy. I don't know how they do it. I don't have the stamina for it. I'm limiting myself to 3 this year because it's just so much work. Just designing a Kickstarter page just takes weeks. And then running it, and then your heart racing, and and then you're promoting it. It's painful. It's painful, but it's something you got to do, right? So with that said, thank you everybody who's been watching the show. If you like this episode, leave a comment, like, share, thank it, tell a friend. Again, we are the longest running independent comic book podcast in the game. We're the first independent comic book podcasters, launched in 2005, where there was only Comic Geek Speak and one other, and they were focused on the big guys. They were focused on DC, the big two. And so we wanted to create a podcast for the small guys, the unsung heroes, the talent that's out there that's redefining the game, the stories that most people don't get to hear but are fantastic, right? And so that's why we created Catch the Craze podcast. And thank you for sticking around with us for this amount of time and being with us this whole time. I truly appreciate you. And I truly appreciate all the guests that were on the show in 2025. It was a fantastic year. We met a lot of new independents out there. We've had singers on the show. We've had attorneys on the show. We've had puppeteers on the show. We've had a lot of different talent on the show. So thank you guys for choosing us to get your stuff out there. We truly appreciate you. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or any other audio podcast platforms, leave a comment, let the algorithms work in our favor, or come over to YouTube and subscribe if you haven't done so already. So with that said, again, if you haven't signed up for Cosmic Wars, the link is in the chat. Sign up now. Cosmic Wars launches in February. Gorf is going to redefine the sci-fi action adventure game, and you can become a Cosmic Guardian, Defender of Freedom, and have this badge of honor. This 4-inch huge sticker could be yours just for signing up and pledging on the first day. So with that said, we do have a guest on the show. His name is so he's done a lot. I'm going to give you a little snippet because it's a lot. It's like when I was reading this, it's like, good Lord, what haven't you done? Right? So Daniel Muller is an author and artist. He is the creator of the hit comic book series Psychonaut Presents and the Simon Myth Chronicles. He's the author of numerous books, including sci-fi action epic PSI Strike, Mind War, The Shamanic Soul, and The Shamanic Kabbalah from Llewellyn. I think it is Llewellyn worldwide. My pronunciation is horrible today. Let's see. As well as the psychedelic urban fantasy novel Red Mass and the Terrence McKenna guidebook, Machine Elves 101. In addition to being a creator, Daniel has a background as a speaker, a teacher, and trainer, both in the business world and creatively. As a master of liberal arts with a history as an adjunct college professor, Daniel's passion for education and expertise lies in many areas, including art, literature, philosophy, psychology, and mysticism. Right? So that's just a snippet of what he's done. I'm going to put the link to his website in the chat so you can read this. It's fantastic. What's up, Lou? Welcome to the show. Yes, a very impressive background. I was like, man, I got to step up my game. What is this? Right? So without further ado, let's bring in our guest tonight. What's up, Daniel? Your mic.
How are you today?
Good, yourself?
Thanks for that introduction.
No problem. Thanks for making it easy. I was reading your bio on your website, and man, I was like, all right, hold on, I got to get a cup of coffee. And pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. So
Yeah, I
for
try.
anybody, for anybody who's I'm not familiar with who you are, give us a little rundown. Even though I did give a little taste.
Yeah. Mostly my focus is being an artist and a writer both. I love to tell stories just in general. So comics are one of my primary formats for doing that, but also I write novels. But I actually have an extensive background in writing nonfiction. I kind of just got my start as an adjunct professor. Liberal arts was my forte. So I got my start telling stories and publishing, just writing articles mostly for literary journals, poetry, other things like that. But I had a very strong bent towards mysticism and alternative spirituality and things like that, and started writing in that vein due to a lot of research that I was doing and experiences, and got most of probably my largest published books were from Llewellyn Worldwide, which is one of the larger metaphysical publishers in the industry. And that was those books that you mentioned, Shamanic Soul and Shamanic Kabbalah. And so, yeah. But anyway, I didn't really move into the comic circuit until a little bit later in my life, really in the past like 6-7 years. It's always been a passion. Since I can first remember, really. I think I just probably never really had the courage to kind of step forward and just go for it. So I did, and just been loving it ever since.
All right. So you skipped a few things, so we're gonna circle back a minute. So that's
Okay. Yeah.
So we're gonna touch on to the mysticism, but let's go back into the comics first, right? So
Sure.
what interested you about comics, and then when was it that you realized that you wanted to create comics?
From the very beginning. I grew up a small kid or small town in the 80s in the Midwest, and there wasn't really a whole lot of access to anything outside of that small town except comic books, were one of the primary things. And it was just like grocery store stuff, right? So it just was right there on the racks, just, Marvel, DC, those things were just powerful to me. I didn't really like reading books a whole lot at first. I loved the pictures. I loved the action. And then just all the weird, odd things like, there's like Ghost Rider or, people with telepathy, and just like the strange stuff that was just so far out of the norm.
Right.
And it just drew me. So as I kind of grew into that, I was immediately making comics. My mom said that I was even drawing comics and picture books and things like that before I could really even write. I would like tell her what to write. She would write the letters, for me. So it's always just been a part of me, really. And I even went to school, or I went to college originally to pursue art, but I did not enjoy college at all, at least in the art school vein of things. And I actually switched my major to English at that time for a couple of reasons. One, I wasn't making it in the art communities. I wasn't really jiving with the art communities very well. But two, I remember an article, I can't remember who was being interviewed, but it was an artist being interviewed in Wizard magazine back in the 90s. And they had said something about the way to be the best comic book artist ever is to start taking creative writing classes. Like, get into the mode of knowing how to tell the story. It's not just about drawing a pretty picture. And that always stuck with me. And I knew I was always going to pursue writing along with art, because it was always just, the process of telling stories. But after a while, I just completely switched my major to English and kind of pursued that vein, because I was finding, that I had kind of a talent there, in the sense that my professors were really impressed with my work. They encouraged me to get published and were pushing me in that direction. So, yeah.
So what was your first written work before you started illustrating comics?
So let's see. I would say my first major article that was published was about, you kind of mentioned it in the bio. It was about a figure named Terrence McKenna, who was kind of like the Timothy Leary of the 90s. Kind of a psychedelic guru. I was really into, psychedelics and things like that in college, of course. Experimented a lot, and with that kind of thing always drew a huge interest for me. And what made him very interesting to me is that he was more focused on using psychedelics as a way to heal, as well as really looking where these plants came from, like the indigenous communities and the ceremonies that they participated in. There was something about the peel of that just kept drawing me over the years. And because he was the figure that really introduced those sort of ideas to me, he died before I even was introduced to him. But he had a vast work of literature, as well as he had a history of showing up at raves and things like that, and just doing these rants on psychedelic culture and consciousness expansion and stuff like that. So I wrote kind of an expose on him, and it got published on an online journal. And then that later actually led to a book deal to write the first biography of this figure. So yeah, that was like and the reason why I bring that up is because that sort of subject matter kind of bleeds into even my later comics work as well. So
That's fantastic. Fantastic. So walk us through that process, right? So now it's it's a natural evolution. You going for just words to now words and pictures.
Yeah. So like I said, I found comfort in just the written word. I had my art school experience, as I expressed, just was very nerve-wracking. It was very hard for me to be able to kind of put myself out there. It felt more vulnerable being an artist for some reason. And as I was exploring the written word and moving forward in that genre, in that psychedelic genre specifically, I was realizing that I've got some healing of my own to do. I got some obstacles in my own psyche to remove here if I can't just do what I want to do, which was always just drawing comics.
Right.
So I kind of pursued that path of exploring indigenous cultures and exploring indigenous ceremony. Went to Peru, just contacted multiple people that researched the subject. This led to some of my other books, Shamanic Soul and Shamanic Kabbalah, because I had a lot of experiences in which I was actually trying to embed myself in certain traditions and learn the certain practices of using these psychedelics, not in some kind of party kind of way, but ceremonially, ritualistically, really trying to work on myself and kind of unplug this part of my brain that just would not allow me to just put myself out there, really, to get rid of these insecurities and do the work. And that's eventually what led to, even though I like I said, I published a couple books through Llewellyn and I was having some nice success there and I enjoyed it. I knew I still needed to return to comics. So I had some experiences, and my wife basically was just like, you know what? There's no way you can express these experiences other than in comic form. You just have to do it. Just start. Who cares if you think it's sketchy or rough and not quite professional? Just do it.
Right.
Which is really the best advice anybody could give anybody, getting started. Don't worry about polishing yourself. That will come later. Just dive in, go for it. So I did, and those first comics were the first few issues of Psychonaut Presents, which were about those particular psychedelic experiences, those experiences in rituals and ceremonies with various shamans and curanderos around the world that were kind of helping me break open this part of myself, to lead me to the point where I would be drawing it on paper.
Wow.
You know, so that's basically a very short synopsis of a very long story that took many years, of course. You
Right.
know, I mean, I'm like in my late 40s, so it took a long time,
Yeah.
but I'm happy I got here, and I enjoy the work that I do. So
It's fantastic because I mean, you touched on a lot of things, right? I think you mentioned about being vulnerable with your art, right? Because it's easily it's the first thing people are going to see, right? It's the first thing
yeah,
people notice on the bookshelves, right? It's the picture, right?
yep,
Where the book, you have to open it up, you have to read a few in order to make an assessment, right?
yeah,
So, and it is a cruel world when it comes to, because everyone has an opinion, right? And
yeah,
I've seen so many artists that were so gung ho about getting into this medium, and then backed out because a critic tore them up, or just trash their art style or whatever it is. And you know, I'm no stranger to a lot of criticism in my years, but I'm just stubborn, right? And I'm like, wow,
right,
whatever. I'm gonna keep drawing, right? Even if the head's too big, I'm gonna keep drawing, right? And but then you also touched on the psychedelics, because I was watching an episode of Joe Rogan, and he was talking about what psychedelics does to, like, opening up your senses to heightened experiences, right? And can you provide an example of a heightened experience that you have lived through with psychedelics, and what's it done for you as a creative? What's it done for your confidence? Has there been an awakening from that process for you?
yeah. There, most certainly, definitely an awakening. But it wasn't like any one particular experience that just like, oh, that did it, yay, walk away, I'm good. Like I said, I engaged with a very specific, indigenous, teachers that actually, do this work, right? So I my intention was to go in and say, I want to learn from you. I don't want to just like walk in as a tourist, drink a bunch of whatever and then walk away. And I want to learn this because that's the way I do things. I'm kinesthetic. I need to like really feel it with my whole body and experience it for a while in order to get it.
Right.
Um, and I wanted to be respectful too. I didn't want to just be just like, oh, I'm the gringo, coming down to Peru, and just like, I did not want that at all. I wanted
Right.
to be completely honoring of, these people and their culture. And so, for me, it was more of like these experiences that I had over time, kind of unlock things. Like, you go to a therapist or a counselor, and over time, it's not just one thing a person says. It's the multiple experiences of kind of chipping away at your ego and kind of finding out, like, what's going on in there. So the particular tradition I was a part of, they worked with a psychedelic called San Pedro, which is not like the mind-blowing stuff people say, that things like ayahuasca and DMT and the stuff like Joe Rogan talks about. It's actually a cactus that's very much related to peyote, biologically, but it's very subtle. It's a very subtle medicine that just works in the body to where you are having a heightened sense and heightened experience. And it mostly just allows you to be able to kind of like release some of the filters that we usually put up to, um, you know, I don't know, to protect ourselves because we feel scared, or we feel insecure or whatever, and really get to the heart kind of psychologically of like what it is that's making you tick. And let's see if we can like kind of not change the things of the past, but look at some of these things of the past and like new ways of learning from those experiences in the past to help better yourself. So the reason why I'm like kind of going through all that is because the people that I worked with were very much working with me directly in that way. It's not like I just drank stuff and I just sat in a room and they just like shook a rattle for the night. It
Right.
was very much this deliberate, exchange, this like talking verbal exchange as well as ritual exchange of trying to really like poke the bear
Right.
inside of me. And so, yeah, it wasn't like necessarily individual experiences, although I point some out in my comics, Psychonaut Presents, the way I laid them out, because one of the experiences I highlight in that particular comic series is a sort of rites of passage that one of my teachers put me through, in the sense that, like, his point of view is like, in Western culture, we don't really get a rites of passage. I mean, we like graduate high school, or when we're 16, you get a car or whatever. And it's kind of it. You go to college, but there's no like ritualized way in which we look at our children and say, okay, now, like, you're an adult, like you're a man now, or you're a woman now. Like there's a severance that happens, so that we no longer like rely on these kind of infantilized ways that sometimes we do, when we get scared or we don't know how to handle stuff in life. And so that was his gift to me, and that's highlighted in that comic series, is this ritualized experience where we imbibed San Pedro, and he put me through a full night of like all kinds of stuff that seems like torture. I mean, there's like, he's whipping me, and putting me, like drowning me down in like, cold, icy water, and like all this stuff that just kind of like, if you look at like, I only say this because I have a couple boys in the Army, but like, if you like look at boot camp and the way they kind of like, they push you to your limit to get you to push yourself to be beyond what you think, what you think you're capable of. And that's like precisely what he was doing for me. It just happened to be on psychedelics, which is funny to say, but it was very, very meaningful, like prime experience for me, because I really truly felt like that was a pivotal moment where, I'm no longer like a little boy anymore. I'm a man. It's time to like freaking own that. And so like, as a result, like, I felt like I had a better clarity of like how to be a better father, how to be a better partner, but also like take more ownership over my creative life, the thing that like feeds my soul, and stop letting it get away from me. I was going into my 40s at that time, and it was like, nah, I can't go to my deathbed like knowing I have all these stories in my head and I haven't produced them. Like, I've got to produce them, because like your comics, like you've known since you were like young, and like you've been working on these characters. Like, same, I have like a whole pile of stories and characters that I've developed since I was young, and I feel like it's kind of like our life's work to put those stories out there. It's important. It's like soul work, so
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's important to me.
I find it fascinating that there was a level of hesitation with wanting to put your artwork out there, but there was this courage that inspired or motivated you to go across the globe to a foreign land, put your life in the hands of perfect strangers, consuming what you believed was natural substance, but not knowing, right? And that you needed to be extremely vulnerable to put yourself in that position and that level of courage that it took. Because when I think about it, I'm like, whoa, that's, it's for me, would I put myself to that? I think the most I've done was jump off a cliff into a lagoon, but that's
awesome.
That's about it. Right. And, was that your introduction to, or did that pique your curiosity about mysticism, and that's what started you on that path, or did that start off way before that?
So my interest in mysticism in general is around way before that. I think that's like what drew me to this stuff. My interest in mysticism really goes all the way back to what I first remember. So I just released issue 5 of my series Psychonaut Presents, and a few people were like, "Wait a minute, you're not like talking about the psychedelic stuff in that book. Like, why?" Because it's all memoir type stuff. But I am going back to like some of my earliest memories as a kid, because for me, that like the idea of being a psychonaut is really exploring the psyche. It's not about like taking psychedelics. It's just like exploring consciousness and like what all this is. And issue 5 truly retells my very first experiences of ever having any kind of conscious memory, and they're weird supernatural experiences. Like my first experience ever is I woke up. It was before kindergarten. I know it wasn't preschool. I woke up from a nap and I saw a witch through my window, some kind of like witch-like figure staring at me through the window. And so I retell this in Psychonaut Presents number 5, and then multiple other experiences that I have of similar type figures that I experienced of this like weird supernatural nature that like weren't really there. Nobody else saw them, but I did.
Right.
And I'm not saying they're ghostly at all by any means. I was on another podcast where like, so it's ghosts and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I could be crazy and that's okay. I'm okay with that. It totally could just be the prospect of an overactive imagination of a young child. But those experiences were my first formative experiences. And they always drew me to this stuff of the paranormal, supernatural, mysticism, spirituality, not in any kind of religious sense,
Right.
but more of like this sense as an explorer of just like, what is all this, you know? And even if it's not something that was like ghosts or supernatural, well, what the heck's going on like in this brain that like it would do that? That's just really interesting to me because it's become it became like sort of a formative theme for me in my life. So like, what's that about? And just, so yeah, it's just like all exploration, really.
You know what's interesting? Because of society, I hear you're trying to rationalize. But I think what happens is what I find fascinating about your approach is that you tapped into something because you wanted to understand what you were experiencing. And I think when we're young, we are conditioned and to conform to society standards and disregard those signals, those points of communication that we're receiving, right? Because no, it's just your imagination. But I think, when you, in hindsight, when you look at the stories that we grew up with, the Tolkiens of the world, all that stuff, whatever, they're inspired by something. There is something communicating, right? And when you tap into it, you'd be surprised what you learn. So while I heard you trying to rationalize for society's purposes, I commend you for wanting to go and explore it because most people will try to avoid it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's because of that we don't tap into our full potential. And that's the way society's built. We're conditioned to not tap into our full potential because then we'd be able to move the way we were meant to move as a species, as a spiritual entity. Right.
Yeah.
So I commend you. Hats off to you. Kudos to you. And I think it's fascinating that you had the courage to do so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just have that compulsion inside of you that just like it pulls on you. And that's just what I'm trying to follow. And, the times that I wasn't following it, I gotta somehow account for that. And that's, so I went many years without making comics and I feel like I missed out on a lot, but that's fine. I'm just like, you get back on the saddle and go,
Absolutely. I mean, I was away from comics for 10 years and, while I regret that, life presents its challenges and you make decisions, you live with it. Right. And I think, and then I decided to come back during COVID, which is crazy, right? So things happen. What are you gonna do? I think Lou says I'm careful who I share my experiences with. Yes, I think that's what it is. I think some people weaponize it. When you share these things, they think you're kooky or whatever it is. I think it's a gift to be able to want to explore, and it takes a level of curiosity and courage to want to know more. And it's that we don't do as a species enough, and those that do, we call them savants, right? We call them special, but they just happen to tap into something that we've been avoiding.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like creativity in general, but most especially comics for me, and for you, obviously, but just creativity is a way that in which I think people are kind of channeling whatever is out there. There's something going on. I mean, we exist and it's weird. And, there's so many things that happen that just are, you can't ever explain. And I don't think really should. I think sometimes it's great to have the mystery, but you know, like the poet and artist William Blake, his whole concept, and writer Alan Moore stressed on this too, is that really the true thing of what God really is really imagination. And imagination is the driving force of the universe, because everything that human beings build comes from an idea.
Yeah.
And that idea comes from that imaginal space. And so in that sense, every creative act Alan Moore calls like the magical act. That's actually magic at work. And I don't think that it has to be any more weirder and esoteric than that. Like, it's truly just that practical of what we're doing. And so I mean, I commend everybody who like puts pen to paper or does dances or makes music or whatever like that. Like, we are, you know, people creating creation as we do that, and it's awesome.
And it all starts with the question, what if?
Yeah.
Right? What if?
Yeah.
Right? And I love the comics back in the 90s, the what if comics, right? Because that's the question that everyone had. What if aliens were real? What if we can fly? What if we can travel across the world? What if? And that's the imagination part, right? And it starts with the question, and then the question leads to curiosity, and it starts movement, and now you start building something fantastic, right? But if you don't ask the question, you won't know what's possible.
It's beautiful, right? Man. I love it.
I know. I love it. I know. And I'm not even drinking right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, I love creating art, and I love consuming art of all forms. You know, just like I never, anytime my kids were ever like, I'm bored, I'm like, open your eyes. There's so much out there in the world. And like, you also have the ability to create any of it. Like, any cool thing that you've seen, you have the ability to create. You can create that and create something cooler. Like, there's no reason to be bored. It's an amazing world. So
yes, and I always tell people, look up. You'll be surprised what you see when you look up, right? And just the formation of the clouds, you might see a flock of geese, or you might see, you know, just there's so much happening above our heads. We never take the time to just pause and look up and embrace it. You know, it's just the little things. And one of my guilty pleasures is sitting in a park with a sketch pad and just people watching, listening to the sounds of people and laughter and just drawing.
Yep. You say that, no joke. Right outside my window there's a park in my backyard, and I do that all the time. I go back there and I do that all the time. It's awesome. Like being around people and watching them interact and watching human behavior and just experiencing that with like nature right there too is just, you're speaking my language, man.
It's funny because I lived in New Jersey at one point, and I would go to New York City to Central Park just to sit down and draw. And I remember I'm sitting there with a sketch pad, I'm drawing, and then I look up and it's my boss with his girlfriend at the time, and he's like, "What are you doing here? It's your day off. Don't you live in Jersey?" I said, "I'm enjoying nature. I'm drawing." And
that's right.
And there was nothing better than doing it at Central Park. Yeah. So now you produce your first comic. Did you have to do any research on producing your comic? Where did you start? Did you, what was some of the steps you've taken to create your first comic book?
So when I was getting that compulsion to begin, you know, that level of creation, I was a part of a couple of different online communities, because this was right around the time of COVID. I think it was right before COVID. And there were a lot of thriving comics communities, I felt. You know, one of them was, you know, and I think this is like kind of become controversial at this point, but one of them was the cartoonist kayfabe community. Not just particularly because of the individuals that ran that YouTube channel, but the actual Facebook community that I was a part of with that group were a lot of wonderfully supportive people. All they did was just, from my experience, all they did was like lift me and everybody else around them up. You know, so you would support their work, you know, they would support yours. And there was a huge exchange of ideas. And that, to me, having that community of people, we would meet regularly online, draw together. having those people to just sit down with and draw with was something that I didn't really have that before. I didn't even have it when I originally went to college. There were no communities of people that you could just sit with and draw with and exchange ideas and be like, oh yeah, well, how do you use a brush in this way? Or what kind of nibs do you use for your pen, etc.? And does this ink work for you? Blah, blah, blah. That was the best ever for me. Cause I'm kinesthetic. I kind of need to be in the mix of it in order to like learn how to do something.
Right.
But the most important thing I learned out of that was making comics. There's no actual rule. Like, you know, when I was learning how to make comics way back in the day, I would like I had that book, like How to Make Comics the Marvel Way, or Eisner's Comics and Sequential Art, stuff like that. Yeah. Excellent stuff. But I also felt kind of restricted by, oh, there's this one particular way to do it. That's just me. Right. That's not on those creators that made those books. That was just like my brain. But that's what the kayfabe community kind of helped teach me, is that there's literally any way to make comics, because through that community, I met all these other independent creators and people all across the board. And just the amount of work that's out there is phenomenal. And the ways that it's done are so different. It's just amazing. Like a comic doesn't have to be done on 11x17 paper. It can be done on whatever size you want. You can print it in whatever size. We have so many options as independent creators now to print stuff out in any way, that in any format that we want. It's amazing. And it makes it fun and different and interesting. Or if you want to print it out the regular way, that's cool too, you know, and the accessibility of tools. And so there's no like set process for me. There was nothing that I really needed to do. I just kind of immersed myself in that community, and I kind of learned through all of that and just by doing it. Nice. But the biggest thing too, I think that taught me, was the absolute essential nature of developing a schedule for yourself.
Yeah.
The discipline and seeing other individuals enact that discipline, and like every night at this time, boom, they're at the table, they're just doing it no matter what. And finding a way to incorporate that into my daily life, being a husband and dad and having a full-time job, you know, was, you know, it wasn't like hugely challenging, but it's just, you know, it's a process, you know. But when you do that, I mean, that's the most rewarding part, is then like you're then just producing regularly. And when you produce regularly, that drives you to just keep doing it more and more and more, right? In my experience.
Absolutely. I love that. I think you touched on it. I think you said having a schedule and being disciplined. These are the things that I've seen were like the demise of independent creators, because they didn't have a schedule and they weren't disciplined enough, right? Because it is a lot of work. You know, when you decide to go down that rabbit hole of creating a comic, it doesn't stop there. Now you got to get the word out, right? Now you got to find a printer, and you got to, you know, this you got to format it and make sure that you proof it. If you're not using an editor, your own editor, right? And then marketing it in, and you got to go on social media. And then if you want to do a crowdfunder, so in order to, all of that administrative work can really hinder the creativity, because it adds a level of frustration and anxiety that you weren't planning for. Because now it feels like work. It's no longer, that side of it's no longer fun, because you want to draw, you want to write, you want to create, right? But if you've done all of that pre-work, which is creating the book, finishing the book, right, creating it, the other stuff should be complementary. It's the addition to it. But if you're doing it simultaneously, it could be, you know, a burden to some, which is why a lot give up. So how did you figure out, in fact, how did you structure your time to be effective in this field?
Well, I actually have a benefit that even I know some of my other creators don't have. By day, I'm a project manager. So
secret weapon.
It is very helpful. And so but I wasn't doing that at first. I was trying to separate work from play. I considered it play, but also, that's what I considered the comics work. But I was looking at it all wrong. There's no reason why I can't merge those two disciplines together. And in fact, it could help augment the comics experience and amp it up to where I get a little bit of a following. I get a community of people. I can get fans, because that's what I wanted. Because at first I was producing books, but I wasn't getting a lot of readership. And, I want people to read it. That's like the whole point of producing something, is having people engage with the material. So yeah, I just started applying those principles of project management. I have every year. I'm in the process right now of creating my plan for the year and goals. And I set deadlines for myself, and I try to create wiggle room within those deadlines to account for real life experiences. So I try to mitigate risks, that could come up. I don't go so far as like developing certain project management artifacts like a risk register and things like that, but I do account for these things, and I do spreadsheet a lot of this stuff out on a schedule for myself. And also, planning things out. I created a completely separate budget. That's just a budget for just comic stuff that doesn't interfere with my family budget. So I know I need to make a certain amount of money in order to do a certain amount of things for the next year, such as, attending, like you were talking about earlier, the number of conventions to attend and, et cetera, this year, because that all costs money too, how much stock I'm going to need. And so that's been a huge tool for me. And my wife had kind of nudged me before too, kind of kicked me under the table and was like, it would be really cool for you to kind of like maybe develop a course, because I used to teach college, develop a little course to like maybe help comic creators, with that sort of thing, or something that like where you can provide like templates or things or something, because I know a lot of people that have amazing work, but yeah, it's that very thing. They don't know how to get out there or keep themselves on a schedule. And I know a couple of people particular in mind that I had series that I was following, and I loved these series so much, and they haven't put out a book in a couple of years now. And it's like, come on, man. I know you have stuff going on, and I know you're busy, but your work is awesome. I want to see where this ends up. And so, yeah, we'll see where that goes.
No, I think you hit it. You hit the nail on the head, right? You said, I plan for the unexpected. I leave a wiggle room, right? For life, the things that come from the side, left field, right? And I think sometimes we put our eggs in one basket. We think it's going to be, I got the perfect plan, I'm going to run forward. And the next year, something happens in your personal life. Something happens in at work, something, and we didn't plan for it, right? So then don't know how to get back in, because you're so distracted from it, that it takes, it can be defeating, because now like, and then you don't know where to start over again, right? So I think planning for the unforeseen is critical.
If your vision is this big, it's awesome to have a big vision, but you have to plan realistically, so if I'm planning a deadline at work or creatively, I could sit there and say, well, I'm going to get 6 books done next year. That's cute that I think that I would be able to do that, but I know life is going to come into the way. And even when I'm just even planning like to complete 1 book, when I set the deadline, I always do this in projects too. You always set it out further than what you actually expect that you can produce it, because stuff will happen. But that means if you get it done earlier, great. That's awesome that you get it done earlier. Gold star for you, and then you can make room for other stuff. But always plan it out later than what you originally project that you can do it, based upon hours and, expense and level of effort, etc. So that's, what I always try to, because I've seen people do that too. They make a deadline, even if it's a self-imposed one, it's nothing with a publisher. They make a deadline. They don't, like you were saying, they don't hit that. and then they have a sense of defeat, and then it kills that drive a little bit. And like the goal is to always stay driven, always like make yourself successful. You have the ability to make yourself successful, but you just kind of you have to rig the system a little bit for yourself to like, keep that drive going. And that's where you'll always be producing.
Absolutely. Now this year, your last campaign, you were funded, you launched it on Crowdfundr. Am I correct? So
Yes,
why
Crowdfundr.
that platform over all the other platforms?
So I hadn't ever done a crowdfunding campaign. I just been kind of producing books and doing print on demand. I decided to do crowdfunding because not that I didn't need my work to be funded. I have a setup to where I can just make the books regardless. But I had 2 comic book series that I'm working on, and I reached number 5 on each one. And because I kind of completed them right around the same time. And I just thought this would be a good opportunity maybe to like amp up my audience a little bit, like go like reach out into community a little bit more, and use this also as a way to fund the conventions that I want to go to next year, to get enough stock to have, or etc. So Kickstarter at the time was on strike, but I also wanted to look for platforms that were very much focused on independent creators. Not that I have anything against Kickstarter at all. I just, when I was kind of going through them, because I still considered it, and there were a couple of others that I looked at, and I can't remember right now. I have it in a spreadsheet somewhere, but Crowdfundr had the easiest setup. It was so easy to set up, and the number of proceeds that they keep was so minimal, and it felt kind of too good to be true. But it was the level of ease of getting it up and going. I really liked, and there was a lot more flexibility on the way that your tiers were set up. So if somebody didn't want something specific in that specific tier, but that's what they could contribute, I had wiggle room to kind of work with that sort of stuff. And they also had they have a feature in Crowdfundr that you don't really have to meet your funding mark. You don't, there's no, with Kickstarter, it's like you have to reach a certain funding goal, or people don't get their stuff. People got their stuff regardless of whether I reached the goal or not. So I exceeded my goal, so that was awesome. Again, I tried to make myself successful there and being realistic in what I needed to earn. And then I also found out, like, through the process, Crowdfundr is awesome. Like, they reached out to me and they promoted my work for me at no cost. They even interviewed me. They put me on their channel. Like, they want their creators to be successful. And so they're at the place now, they're small enough that they can invest in that.
Right.
And it was really cool. I mean, I really appreciated the platform. And so it was a great experience with Crowdfundr. If anybody's looking for, if Kickstarter is good for you, awesome. But if you're looking for an alternative, I always suggest that to people now, because I enjoyed it and it was easy.
So right now you're currently fulfilling the campaign?
Oh, I have just completed it. I've just wrapped it up. My books are still available. If anybody wants to get my books, they can reach me at my website, and you can order them there on the shop. That was part of the purpose of the crowdfunding campaign. Is my focus was being able to print a large quantity of my books, so I could always have them available to deliver to people personally.
Right.
I have a print-on-demand shop through Indie Planet that people have normally got my books in the past, but I like it when I order books from independent creators and I get it signed. I get like a personal note, like you're offering stickers, like stuff like that. I want to be a little bit more engaged in that front, and that's another reason why I wanted to grow a stock of my books that I had on hand. I would like people to order for me directly. I want to be able to, like, hey, you get a little drawing, like I want people to have like a fun package that they receive that like makes it fun to get the book. And you're not just getting, the book shipped from some print on demand service or whatever.
Yeah.
So it'll be,
Absolutely. So what's the next, what's next for you for FY 2026?
2026. Well, the thing I'm kind of like working on right now is I'm gonna have a table at Planet Comic Con in Kansas City. So I'm kind of prepping for that and trying to like make sure my stock's ready, get some prints available, and set up a kind of a commission, list that people can, ask commissions for. But I'm also working on the next issues of like my two series, Psychonaut Presents and Simon Myth Chronicles. I mean, I'm still plugging away at those. I intend for those to continue on for quite some time. And like you've like issue 6, 7, 8. Like where are you at?
Issue 8 for Designated on my Twitter.
Issue 8, like that's incredible. Like that, I think that is way more awesome and more of a draw for me than like someone who just like produced one book and they're just only promoting one book for years. Someone that has like a library, a portfolio. Yeah, that's an investment as a reader for me, and that's what I'm looking forward to being able to fulfill. So yeah, I'm going to continue these two series and keep having fun with it. And my goal is to get the next issue for both comic series done this year. So nice. We'll see what Daniel Moeller can do, if he's a good project manager or not.
All right. So pick one of your titles, give us your elevator pitch. Why should people go to your website and check it out?
Sure. So Psychonaut Presents is one of the primary comics in my imprint, Psychonaut Comics. And Psychonaut Presents is kind of an anthology. It's mostly memoirs of my different psychedelic experiences or just experiences with the supernatural and paranormal. But there are other cartoons and pinups and artworks and things in there. I really wanted it to be a full-on, like kind of anthology-based comic book, but all produced by me. So you can find that at www.danielmoellerweb.com. I'm also at Instagram at The Real Daniel Moeller, and you can find me on Facebook too and on YouTube. So, yeah.
Outstanding. Well, thank you, Daniel, for coming on to selecting Catch the Craze to talk about your career. I was more fascinated about your life story. I think it's chock full of courage, adventure, curiosity. It's just evolution. It's all wrapped into one big, I mean, your story is a story in itself, which is fascinating. So I really appreciate that. You're welcome to come back on the show. You have the link, you know how to use it. Just book yourself. And awesome. You're always welcome back on Catch the Craze podcast.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I really like the conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. You have a safe and happy and prosperous new year.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Peace. All right, that was Daniel Moeller. Again, check it out. The link is in the chat. It's also in the summary. I mean, he has a library of amazing work. Go and check it out and give it a shot. I mean, it's fantastic. I was definitely interested in the entire subject matter, which is pretty fantastic. It takes a lot of courage to travel around the world and, and go and explore the things that trigger curiosity. Most people run from it and he ran towards it, which is awesome. And I never shy away from the things that I see that I shouldn't be seeing that somehow popped up. I'm always curious about that stuff. I'm like, wait, is that real? What am I seeing? I didn't go as far as wanting to really dive into it, but he got me wondering how many times did I avoid what I just saw, right? I think we've all experienced something in that vein. But so the year is wrapping up. I want to say thank you again to everybody who's been with us this year and throughout the years. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you to friends and family and everybody out there. I hope you have a fantastic holiday season, and I wish you all a healthy, happy, prosperous 26. I know there's a lot of uncertainties out there, and it's a crazy world that we're in. It gets crazier every day. But it's easy to criticize, and it's easy to tear people down. It's very difficult to say I love you. It's extremely difficult to say I see you, I appreciate you. Pick up the phone and have that conversation that you've been avoiding. Give somebody a hug, and do something kind to your fellow man. Give up your seat, open up a door, you know, uh, give thanks and acknowledgement, and just be grateful. Uh, Sometimes it takes strength to be vulnerable, but I think it's just humanity, you know? It's, let someone know you care, and it's okay um to share that sensitive side in you. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't make you weak. And I think sometimes we think we have to be macho and avoid all that stuff. But with that said, happy New Year to every single one of you. Happy New Year, happy New Year, Casey. Thank you, everybody out there. And I'm looking forward to Texoma Comic Con. I think I'm going to see Dan Price and Lori Calcaterra out there. That's going to be fun. George Juma Medina is flying in from New York. He'll be out there with me. So we'll have a good weekend in February, which is going to be dope. Forbidden will be on the table then. And we'll be promoting Cosmic Wars. We'll be in the middle of the camp. So, uh, we don't know what the future holds, but we know what we intend to see happen. So, and that's one step towards prosperity, right? How to plan and keep forward no matter what the obstacle, right? And never lose sight of hope. Never stop asking what if. It always starts with that one question, what if? So, hey, oh, what's up? Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you. Um, with that said, from all of us, George the G, we appreciate you. We honor you. We love you. And we hope to see you for the new year next week on our new show, the next show. And we have another guest next week and the weeks after. So happy New Year. Be safe. Be merry. Be happy. Peace out.
It's just easy. It's not.
Crazy. Acquiesce.
No, I was talking about my friend Acquiesce. I met him.
Say my name, right? This is what you were thinking? Oh, my.
He described me. He said, I'm the
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. To Catch the Craze. You are listening to Catch the Craze on Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze.
Candy girl.